I should have known something was wrong the moment Instructor Vel'kara announced the assignment with that smug tilt of her sensory ridge. You know the look. The one that screams, I'm about to embarrass someone, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it. Hunting practical, she declared, her voice echoing through the Academy's training dome. Each species will demonstrate their evolutionary advantages in capturing prey. Naturally, we'll be observing proper protocol and safety measures. Naturally, because that's what you do when you're trying to prove to a human that they're the weakest link in a class full of apex predators. The human in question, a female named Kira Voss, sat in the back row with her arms crossed. She didn't look intimidated. She looked bored. That should have been my first clue, but I was too busy watching Instructor Vel'kara's mandibles twitch with anticipation. Miss Voss, the instructor said, turning her compound eyes toward the human. Given your species' rather limited physical capabilities, I'm assigning you to observation duty. You'll document the hunts while the actual predators do the real work. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Kira uncrossed her arms slowly. Very slowly. With respect, Instructor, I'd like to participate. Vel'kara's laugh sounded like grinding metal. Participate. My dear, your species has no venom, no claws, no enhanced speed, no camouflage, no natural armor. You can't even see in multiple spectrums. What exactly do you plan to hunt with? Your charming personality? Several students chittered with amusement. I'll admit, I joined in. I mean, come on, humans were known for their technology and their bizarre ability to befriend literally anything, but hunting? They were prey animals at best. Persistent prey animals, sure, but still prey. Kira stood up, and something in her expression made my dorsal spines tingle. I'll hunt whatever you assign me, Instructor. Standard rules, no technology beyond what any species here could naturally produce. Fair. Oh, this was going to be good. Vel'kara's sensory ridge quivered with delight. Very well. Since you're so confident, I'll assign you 3 targets. Bring back proof of your kills, and I'll personally recommend you for advanced placement. Fail, and you transfer to the engineering track where you belong. 3 targets? Kira's eyebrow raised. Just one. The left one. Seems excessive. For you, I think it's generous. You have 1 standard rotation, beginning at dawn. The instructor pulled up a holographic display, and my stomach dropped. Not because I felt bad for the human. No, I dropped because I recognized the species listed. First target, a Rax'thor Stalker. 800 pounds of muscle, scales and attitude. They could smell fear from 3 miles away and moved through forest terrain like liquid shadow. Their hide was tough enough to deflect most standard projectiles. Second target, a Vorpal Screamer. Airborne predator with a wingspan of 20 feet, capable of sonic attacks that could rupture internal organs. They hunted in packs and never ever landed unless they were absolutely certain their prey was dead. Third target, a Thresh'maw burrower. Armored, aggressive and mean enough to attack things twice its size just for looking at it funny. They lived underground and could sense vibrations from surface movement half a mile away. You're joking, I said, before I could stop myself. Vel'kara turned her attention to me. Do you have something to add, Zine? I gestured at the display with my foreclaw. Instructor, those are all apex predators in their respective environments. Even our best hunters would struggle with one of them, and you're asking her to bring back 3 in 1 rotation. I didn't ask her, she volunteered. The instructor's mandibles spread in what I assumed was supposed to be a smile. Miss Voss, do you wish to reconsider? Kira looked at the holographic projections of her targets. She tilted her head slightly, like she was examining items on a shopping list. Will standard documentation be sufficient? Video recording, physical evidence, that sort of thing. Visual confirmation and 1 trophy from each creature will suffice. Great. Kira grabbed her pack from under her seat. I'll see you all tomorrow then. She walked out. Just like that. No dramatic speech, no pleading for better terms, nothing. The class erupted in conversation the moment the door sealed behind her. She's dead, declared Crix, A manthar whose species had literally evolved from ambush predators. Absolutely, completely dead. Maybe she'll get smart and hide for a rotation, then claim she couldn't find them, suggested another student. I wasn't so sure. There was something about the way Kira had looked at those projections. Not fear, not even concern. More like recognition. Like she'd seen this scenario before and already knew how it would end. But that was ridiculous. Right? The next morning I arrived at the training dome early. So did everyone else. Even students from other classes had heard about the Human Hunt Challenge and wanted to watch the aftermath. Instructor Vel'kara stood at the central platform, her posture radiating confidence. The observation screens were already active, showing various angles of the hunting preserve. It was a massive area, covering over 500 square miles of varied terrain, forests, mountains, underground cave systems, open plains. Everything a predator could want. Settle down, Vel'kara commanded, though she looked just as eager as the students. We'll begin by reviewing the overnight footage. I want you all to see what happens when arrogance meets reality. She pulled up the first recording, timestamped 4 hours after Kira entered the preserve. The video showed Kira moving through dense forest, her movements surprisingly quiet for a species with such inflexible feet. She stopped suddenly, crouching low. The camera angle switched to thermal imaging. There, about 40 yards ahead, the heat signature of a Rax'thor Stalker, perfectly camouflaged among the trees. Notice how she's frozen, Vel'kara narrated. The Rax'thor has undoubtedly detected her scent by now. She has perhaps 30 seconds before it attacks. Watch closely. This is what happens when inadequate preparation meets superior evolution. 30 seconds passed. 1 minute. 2 minutes. The Rax'thor hadn't moved. Neither had Kira. What is she doing? Someone whispered. 5 minutes. The Rax'thor shifted slightly, its massive head turning away from Kira's position. Then Kira moved, not away, toward it. Is she insane? Crix hissed. Kira closed the distance to 20 yards. 15. 10. The Rax'thor still hadn't reacted. She reached down slowly, picked up a rock about the size of her fist and threw it. The rock sailed past the Rax'thor's head, rustling leaves on the opposite side. The creature spun toward the sound, every muscle tensing for an attack. Kira threw a second rock, then a third, each one landing further away, creating a trail of sound moving away from her position. The Rax'thor followed the sounds, stalking what it thought was fleeing prey. Clever, Vel'kara admitted, grudgingly. She's using misdirection to avoid confrontation. But she still needs to actually hunt the creature, not just avoid it. The video fast-forwarded. Kira spent the next 6 hours doing something that looked completely incomprehensible. She was gathering plants, stripping bark from specific trees, and digging in the soil. She built a small fire, boiled water in a container from her pack, and created some kind of paste. What in the depths is she making? Someone asked. The answer came 2 hours later when Kira began applying the paste to her skin, clothes and equipment. Then she covered herself with local mud and vegetation. Oh, that's smart, I found myself saying. She's masking her scent. It won't be enough, Vel'kara countered. The Rax'thor doesn't rely solely on scent. But Kira wasn't done. She spent another hour setting up what looked like a simple snare using vine and branches. Except it wasn't simple at all. The more I watched, the more I realized she was creating a trap within a trap within a trap. Multiple trigger points, redundant fail-safes, and backup mechanisms. Then she baited it, with what I couldn't tell from the video. And then she waited. The time stamp jumped forward another 8 hours. Dawn was breaking. The Rax'thor appeared, drawn by whatever scent Kira had used as bait. It approached cautiously, its predatory instincts warring with its curiosity. It triggered the first trap. Nothing happened. The Rax'thor relaxed slightly, moving forward. Second trap. Still nothing. The creature reached the bait, a large chunk of meat Kira must have preserved from her rations. Third trap. The snare activated, but not around the Rax'thor's body. Around its hind leg, yanking it off balance. Before it could recover, A second mechanism released, dropping a heavy log that pinned the creature's neck without killing it. Kira emerged from camouflage barely 10 feet away. The Rax'thor thrashed, trying to free itself, but the trap held. She approached slowly, speaking in a low voice we couldn't hear through the recording equipment. The Rax'thor's thrashing gradually decreased. She reached out, touched its head gently, then carefully freed it from the trap. The creature stood, shook itself and stared at her. Then it lowered its head in what could only be described as submission. "That's not possible," Vel'kara whispered. "Rax'thors don't submit. They don't even acknowledge dominance hierarchy outside their own packs." But there it was on screen. An 800-pound apex predator, treating a 5'6" human like a pack leader. Kira pulled out a small blade, carefully cut a single scale from the Rax'thor's shoulder, the creature not even flinching, then released it completely. The Rax'thor watched her for a long moment, then simply walked away. "One down," someone said quietly. "Two to go." The video continued. Kira moved toward the mountain region where the Vorpal screamers nested. This was going to be even more interesting than the first hunt. I glanced at Instructor Vel'kara. Her sensory ridge had flattened completely against her skull. That only happened when she was either very angry or very confused. Possibly both. The second recording started with Kira scaling a cliff face that made my internal organs clench just watching it. No safety equipment. No climbing gear beyond what she'd improvised from vines and stripped wood. Just her flexible fingers finding holds in rock that looked smooth as glass from the camera angle. Vorpal screamers nest at the highest peaks, Vel'kara narrated, her voice tight. They choose locations specifically because most predators can't reach them. The atmospheric pressure alone at that altitude would incapacitate most species. But Kira kept climbing. Her breathing was labored. Yes, her movements slower than at ground level, absolutely, but she didn't stop. She didn't fall. She just kept finding the next handhold, the next foothold, moving upward like water flowing in reverse. It took her 9 hours to reach the nesting grounds. 9 hours. "Why doesn't she just quit?" Crix muttered. "This is absurd." I didn't answer, because I was starting to understand something. This wasn't about passing an assignment anymore. Maybe it never had been. This was about proving a point. Or maybe proving several points, none of which were going to make Instructor Vel'kara happy. The video showed Kira finally pulling herself onto a rocky ledge. She lay there for several minutes, just breathing. Then she sat up, drank water from her canteen, and ate something from her rations. She was studying the area with those bizarre forward-facing eyes that gave humans such strange depth perception. The Vorpal screamer nest was visible about 300 yards away, built into a natural cave opening. The adult screamers were circling overhead, their wings catching the thin mountain air currents. "Now what?" someone asked. "She can't possibly catch a flying predator. They never land except to feed their young or sleep." Kira spent the next hour doing something that looked utterly pointless. She was collecting the dried grass and plant matter that somehow grew at this altitude, bundling it together, and weaving it into long rope-like structures. Then she gathered stones, specific stones, testing their weight in her hand before either keeping them or tossing them aside. "Is she building something?" I asked. "Looks like a sling," Zara, another student, said. "Primitive projectile weapon. My species used something similar about 8,000 years ago before we developed proper technology." "A sling?" Vel'kara's mandibles twitched. Against a Vorpal screamer, the hubris is almost admirable. But Kira wasn't building just one sling. She built 3, each slightly different in length and weight distribution. Then she practiced with them, spinning the ropes, releasing stones at different angles and velocities. Most of her shots missed whatever target she was aiming for, but gradually, over the course of 2 more hours, her accuracy improved. The sun was setting. The Vorpal screamers would be returning to roost soon. Kira positioned herself downwind from the nest, behind a rock formation that provided both cover and a clear line of sight. She loaded one of her slings with a carefully selected stone and waited. The first screamer came in low, wings spread wide to catch the air, slowing for landing. Kira's sling whipped through the air. The stone flew in a perfect arc, and missed. By at least 6 feet, the screamer landed at the nest entrance, folding its wings. "See," Vel'kara said, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Impossible. The reflexes required. The precision, she doesn't have the neural processing speed to." Kira loaded her second sling, adjusted her stance slightly, waited for the next screamer. The stone flew. This one came closer. Maybe 3 feet off target. The screamer noticed something, its head swiveling toward Kira's position. It shrieked, the sound making the recording equipment crackle with distortion. That sonic attack could have liquefied Kira's internal organs from that distance, but Kira had already ducked behind her rock cover. The sonic waves blasted past her position, shattering stone on the opposite cliff face. She popped up, third sling already loaded and spinning. Released. The stone struck the screamer directly in its center mass. The creature tumbled backward off the ledge, instinctively spreading its wings to catch itself. That's when Kira's real trap activated. She'd spent all that time weaving rope not just for slings. She'd created a net, camouflaged among the natural vegetation, positioned precisely where a falling screamer would spread its wings to recover. The creature hit the net, tangled immediately. Its thrashing only wrapped it tighter. Kira was already moving, sprinting across the rocky terrain with a speed that seemed impossible after 9 hours of climbing and 2 hours of practice. She reached the screamer while it was still trying to free itself. Instead of killing it, she did something that made the entire class go silent. She started untangling it, carefully, gently, speaking in that low voice again. The screamer's struggles decreased. Its eyes, multiple clustered orbs designed for aerial hunting, focused on her. She freed one wing, then the other. The creature could have attacked. Should have attacked. Its beak could have taken her head off with a single strike. It didn't. Kira reached into her pack, pulled out a piece of dried meat, and offered it. The screamer snatched it, swallowed, then tilted its head in that universal gesture of confusion. She offered another piece. The screamer took it more gently this time. Then Kira did something that made Instructor Vel'kara make a sound I'd never heard her make before, a sort of strangled gasp. She reached out and touched the screamer's head crest, the most vulnerable part of its anatomy, the place where all its sensory organs connected. The screamer leaned into the touch. "That's not hunting," Vel'kara said weakly. "That's impossible. That's against every natural instinct that creature possesses." Kira carefully plucked a single flight feather, one already loosened from the netting struggle, and released the screamer. It hopped backward, spread its wings, and launched itself into the air. It circled once overhead, shrieked, not in aggression but what almost sounded like farewell, and flew off toward its nest. "2 down," I said. 1 to go. The third recording started immediately. Kira was descending the mountain much faster than she'd climbed it. Still careful, but with an efficiency that suggested she'd memorized every handhold on the way up. She reached ground level as the sun rose fully, marking the beginning of her final rotation period. She had maybe 6 hours left. The Thresh'maw hunting grounds were in the canyon systems to the east, underground warrens where the armored burrowers created elaborate tunnel networks. Fighting them in their own territory was considered suicidal, which was why most hunters tried to draw them to the surface, except the Thresh'maw rarely came to the surface, unless absolutely necessary. Kira approached the canyon edge, studying the ground with an intensity that made me nervous just watching. She was looking for something specific. Fresh digging marks, maybe air holes, some sign of the tunnel system below. She found it, a collapsed section where a tunnel had partially caved in, creating a gap barely large enough for a human to squeeze through. "She's not going down there," Crix said. "She can't be that stupid." Kira tied her improvised rope to a stable rock formation, tested it twice, then lowered herself into the darkness. The camera switched to low-light amplification, making everything green and grainy. The tunnel was tight, winding, with loose soil that could collapse at any moment. The perfect environment for the Thresh'maw, the worst possible place for a soft-skinned human. She moved slowly now, each step deliberate. She was listening, not just with her ears but with her whole body, I realized. Feeling for vibrations in the walls, the floor, the air itself. The Thresh'maw was close, had to be. They defended their territories aggressively. Kira stopped at a junction where 3 tunnels intersected. She crouched, examining something on the ground. Scratch marks. Fresh ones. She touched them lightly, then looked at each tunnel entrance in turn. She chose the left tunnel. Why, I couldn't tell. They all looked identical to me. The tunnels sloped downward, deeper into the warren. The air quality must have been terrible. Humans needed oxygen-rich environments. Down here in recycled underground air, she had to be struggling. But she kept going. A sound echoed through the tunnel system. A grinding, scraping noise that made my spine stand on end even through the recording. The Thresh'maw was coming. Kira pressed herself against the tunnel wall, making herself as small as possible. The grinding grew louder, closer. Then I saw it. The armored snout emerged from a side tunnel, followed by the massive scaled body. The Thresh'maw was easily 12 feet long, covered in overlapping plates that could deflect energy weapons. Its claws were designed for tearing through solid rock. It stopped, sniffed the air. Kira wasn't breathing. I mean, she had to be breathing, but the recording showed no movement, no sound, nothing that would give away her position. The Thresh'maw moved closer. Its snout was inches from her face. Then Kira did something that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. She started humming, a low rhythmic sound that seemed to match the grinding noise the creature had been making. The Thresh'maw froze. Kira continued humming, slowly raising one hand. She touched the creature's armored snout, still maintaining that low vibrational sound. The Thresh'maw backed up slightly, confused. Kira followed, still humming, still touching. She was moving with the creature now, matching its movements, her humming shifting to match changes in its grinding vocalizations. She's mimicking it, Zara breathed. She's communicating through vibration. That's impossible, Vel'kara said. Humans can't process vibrational communication at those frequencies. Then, what are we watching? I asked. Kira led the Thresh'maw deeper into the tunnel system, still humming, still touching, still matching every movement and sound. They reached what must have been the creature's nesting chamber. Several smaller Thresh'maw were visible, juveniles huddled in the corner. A female. Kira had found the breeding female. The creature could have killed her instantly. Should have. Breeding females were the most aggressive, most protective members of the species. Instead, the Thresh'maw lowered its head. Kira carefully reached up and removed a single scale from its head crest. The scale already cracked and ready to molt anyway. She showed it to the creature, then slowly backed away, still humming, still maintaining that strange vibrational communication. The Thresh'maw watched her retreat. Didn't follow, didn't attack, just watched. Kira made it back to the surface as the sun approached its zenith. She had 30 minutes left. The recording ended. The training dome was absolutely silent. Instructor Vel'kara stood motionless at her platform. Her sensory ridge was doing something I'd never seen before, twitching in rapid patterns that suggested complete system overload. The door to the dome opened. Kira walked in, covered in dirt and mud, her clothes torn, her hair matted. She looked exhausted. She also looked quietly satisfied. She walked straight up to Vel'kara's platform and placed 3 items on the surface. A Rax'thor scale, dark and gleaming. A Vorpal screamer feather, iridescent in the dome's lighting. A Thresh'maw scale, heavy and ridged. 3 apex predators, Kira said quietly, as requested, all alive and unharmed. Video documentation is complete. Any questions? Vel'kara's mandibles worked soundlessly for several seconds. Finally she managed, how? You said humans can't hunt because we don't have natural weapons, right? No claws, no venom, no armor. Kira smiled. Not smug, not angry, just tired and honest. But we have something better. We have patience. We have observation. We have the ability to understand what something else needs, wants, or fears. And we have empathy. Empathy, Vel'kara repeated. You're claiming empathy is a hunting trait? No, I'm claiming empathy is a survival trait. Hunting implies killing. What I did was communicate. Every species here is intelligent in its own way. They can learn. They can adapt. They can choose to trust or fight. I just gave them options that benefited us both. You endangered yourself repeatedly, Vel'kara said. The risk was unacceptable. Kira's smile widened slightly. And with respect, Instructor, you sent me to hunt 3 apex predators in one rotation with no technology and expected me to die trying. The risk was always unacceptable. I just chose to make it unacceptable for everyone instead of just for me. The silence stretched. Then from the back of the room someone started a slow clap. Then another. Then the entire class was applauding. Even Crix was clicking his mandibles in approval. Instructor Vel'kara looked at the trophies on her platform. Then at Kira. Then back at the trophies. Advanced placement, she said finally. As promised. And also, Miss Voss, I believe I owe you an apology. No apology necessary, Kira said. Just maybe reconsider your assumptions about what makes an effective predator. Sometimes the best hunter is the one who doesn't have to hunt at all. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Instructor? Those 3 creatures you assigned? They're all territorial, but not aggressive unless threatened. The Rax'thor was defending its pack territory. The Screamer was protecting its nest. The Thresh'maw was guarding her children. Once I understood that, everything else was just patience and respect. She walked out of the dome, leaving a room full of apex predators, evolved hunters, and trained killers all staring at the door. Well, I said finally, I guess humans can hunt after all. No, Vel'kara said quietly. Her sensory ridge had flattened again, but this time it looked more thoughtful than upset. They can do something much more dangerous. They can make apex predators choose not to hunt them. And that, students, is a lesson worth remembering. She looked at each of us in turn. Class dismissed. And I suggest you all reconsider what you thought you knew about evolutionary advantages. Clearly, we have much to learn. I left the dome thinking about what I'd witnessed. Humans didn't win through strength or speed or natural weapons. They won through understanding, through patience, through the bizarre ability to look at something designed to kill them and see a thinking being worthy of respect. Terrifying, really, when you thought about it. No wonder they'd talked the Galactic Council into accepting them as equals, despite having no natural defenses. They didn't need defenses. They turned potential threats into allies. And that was perhaps the most apex predator trait of all.